Welcome to another episode of Who Would Win, a show that completely ignores anything important happening in the world and instead focuses on a fictional battle between characters from the worlds of comics, sci-fi, and fantasy. I'm your host, James Gavsie, and as always, I'm joined by the one and only Eric Holmes. We're doing this. In today's episode, we are forced to go into proverbial overtime as our previous episode of Star Wars versus Star Trek was deemed too close to call by our judge, which means we are doing something we've never done before and going to continue this debate in order to finally decide on a winner. In one corner, rep by Eric Holmes, it's Star Wars. I'm not going to explain what Star Wars is. You know what Star Wars is. We all love it. It's fantastic. You know, Sith, Jedi, the Force, the Death Star, you get it. And the other corner, rep by me, is Star Trek, Starfleet, technology, legendary captains, the Klingon Empire, the United Federation of Planets, the Borg, the Q Continuum, all that kind of good stuff. They're in my corner. As usual, I ran the patented Who Would Win Google test, and boy, did we ever add to it. This debate has been going on for decades, and we just added some fuel to the fire, and we are coming to a conclusion, I've been told, today with this episode. Eric, I have to know, what are your thoughts on today's matchup?
Isn't it amazing, James? We had a tie, and us being competitive, the geeking out that we do, that we're like, no, hey, this needs to happen. So I am pumped. We did not accept a tie.
No, we did not.
Our judge challenged us, so we challenged the judge that we will deliver more if enough. It seems like enough wasn't delivered. So this is awesome. This is what we do.
Well,
we need a decision.
What's interesting is you and I, on other opposite sides of this battle, both looked at each other when the judge was like, oh, I haven't heard enough, and I think it's kind of like a draw or whatever. And you and I looked at each other like, oh, hell no, this is not. We both can't accept this. Yes.
All of it?
No way. You thought you won. I thought I won. And I think that's a sign of a good battle. Yeah, I got to tell you, I was impressed by some of your points. I thought I brought enough. Same. Yeah, but again, we at the end of the last week's episode, we talked about how much research we both did, right?
Right.
I came up with way more than 3 points and just kind of had to whittle it down based on what I thought you were going to present. Mm-hmm. What about you? How did your research turn out for you? Like, do you have a lot more to bring to the table?
I'm so glad that I have this opportunity because, yes, to your point, it's Star Wars, Like, obviously, you're repping Star Trek. So it was, like refining it and trying to just get to the meat, if you will, but there's just so much meat out there in the galaxy.
After 50 freaking years, there's a lot to unpack there. Okay. All right. Let's see what's up with our judge today because, I may have been a little harsh with him last week. Coming back to the Who Would Win show, bring his judge-like sensibilities like no one else ever could. It's the unofficial yet official mayor of Beverly Hills. It's the poster child for all things great that everyone ever strives to present to the public. It's the one, it's the only. It's Judge Tadeo. Tadeo, welcome back to Who Would Win.
I'm always excited to be here. I mean, there's nowhere else to be. We're in blank spaces in the Venice area, just enjoying ourselves. We took over Snapchat because we're just as talented as they are. But I got to tell you, I've never had to render a decision like this as a tie. So I want to get back into the grit. Let's get back in the ring. Let's get nasty with it, and let's find a way for somebody to win. So I'm waiting. I'm listening.
Were you affected at all negatively by, how either Eric or I, especially me, kind of put you on the spot last week? Were you surprised at all by any of that?
Did you feel attacked?
Not at all. I didn't. I considered fining and holding people in contempt. But I said, nah, I was in a good mood, a great mood, because, I just had a delicious meal at Irwan, and the scenery, the views are just spectacular. You know what I mean? You can't, anywhere in the world, you're not going to trump it. So because of that, I said, nobody's getting fined today.
That's very generous of you. That's very generous of you. I did drive home after the episode saying, I did take my life in my own hands.
Took a risk.
Yeah. Judge Tadeo could have been like, you know what? Okay, fine. Then, James, you're repping Star Trek. I think Star Wars wins. You could have easily have done that.
Could have happened.
But you're what we call a high caliber person.
Yeah.
So that high caliber people don't do that kind of thing. I'm thankful for it. But you know what, Judge Tadeo?
I hope you learned from that. I hope James learned from that.
I did learn from that. You know what I learned? I learned that I can push things and get away with it. And by the way, I'm going to do it again. You guarantee that there will be a verdict. You will be, no matter what, making a decision and claiming one side gaining the victory. Is that true?
Absolutely. We're not leaving this room until somebody goes home whining and another a winner. So we got a whiner and a winner coming up.
Winner and winner. Very cool. All right, Eric, this is going to be epic. Let's get into it. But before we do, let's go over the official rules of a who would win show or who would win match. Each debater will make 3 points. Keep in mind that who would win match is a random encounter neutral location with no prior knowledge and prep time allowed. The debater has to stay within the confines of the character. And when it comes to determining the winner, it's the judge who has the final say and will determine which character lost based on death, incapacitation, or battlefield removal with no outside interference allowed. Remember, the bottom line of who would win match is that for one side to get the win, their opponent must be incapacitated for a minimum of 2 minutes where they pose no threat whatsoever. Before we get started, again, we got to thank our sponsor for today's episode. It's Comic Crusaders. If you love comics, pop culture, real conversation with the people actually making the magic happen, you got to check out Comic Crusaders. From indie legends on the rise, the industry heavy hitters, Comic Crusaders pulls back the curtain and takes you inside and behind the stories. Comic Crusaders was created by the one and only Al Mega, one of the greatest minds in geek culture. He does interviews, reviews, reactions, straight up has the passion for the culture like no one else. On top of that, he's such a great guy. And here's the best part. Comic Crusaders has been doing this for 20 years strong. That's not hype. That's legacy. So if you want to discover your next favorite comic, meet the creators before they blow up and when they've actually made it, or just vibe with a community that actually loves this culture, go to comiccrusaders.com. That's comiccrusaders.com. And now let's get to the tail of the tape for both of our commands. Eric, please give us the details for Star Wars.
Let's give it to him. Here we go again. Far beyond the Skywalker saga, Star Wars spans tens of thousands of years of galactic history filled with ancient Jedi and Sith, sprawling republics and empires, devastating wars and civilizations that have risen and fallen across millions of inhabited worlds. His universe is built on a unique blend of myth, fantasy, and science fiction where the Force shapes the destiny of entire generations and legendary figures like Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, Emperor Palpatine, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and countless others leave lasting marks on the galaxy. There is no doubt Star Wars has created one of the richest and most expansive, fictional for some, reality for others, settings ever assembled.
Well done, Eric. All right. Actually, really well done. Here are the details for Star Trek.
Thank you.
Spanning centuries of exploration, diplomacy, scientific discovery, and interstellar conflict, Star Trek has developed one of the most detailed civilizations in all of fiction. Beyond the voyages of the Enterprise lie vast political powers, including the Federation, Klingon Empire, Romulan Star Empire, Cardassian Union, Dominion, and the Borg Collective, each possessing distinct philosophies, technologies, and military strengths. Throughout its television series, films, novels, comics, and video games, Star Trek has continually pushed the boundaries of science fiction with breakthroughs in warp travel, transporters, artificial intelligence, temporal mechanics, and advanced engineering. Star Trek presents a living, evolving future whose scale, complexity, and vision have made it one of the most inspiring and influential franchises ever. And now you have the facts on both opponents. Tadeo, do you have any questions before we get started?
I really don't. I mean, I'm familiar with these universes, and I mean, we're blessed to have such quality television and movies.
Oh man,
that'll never be replicated or recreated. But now let's get to the battle. I'm ready to hear it.
I just need to make one point. I need to make this very, very clear. There's been, Eric, you and I talked about like sometimes Star Wars has big hits and some misses and what have you, right? Mm-hmm. Star Trek, same thing.
Yes.
And here's the deal. How great is it that we live in a world where we can have so many different types of TV series, films, comic books, whatever, for both franchises so that we can say, hey, some are good. Hey, that wasn't quite as good. And all I'm trying to say to the fan base, there was a time where all we had for Star Wars were the 3 movies and comic books.
Oh, wow.
That was it. And a horrible Christmas special that we don't want to talk about. There was a time where Star Trek only had like a TV series and some films or whatever. There wasn't a whole lot. We get to enjoy all that. All I'm saying is if you don't like something, be classy about it and say, hey, you know what? That wasn't for me, because the people will listen. And if you don't watch it, that's what they'll find out. You don't have to be toxic about expressing your opinion. That's all I want to say. Right?
Fair.
That's it.
Well said.
Thank you.
I think that's applicable to society today.
Oh yeah.
Really? How interesting.
That was a really good, point that you made and nicely put, James. Yeah, I totally agree with it. And with this, I'm just excited because just like you from last time, like there was a lot of unfinished information that I could have just, diarrhea the mouth with. And so I'm pumped that we got this second chance to just dive deeper, if you will.
Absolutely. Well, let's see what the second chance is going to bring. Eric, hit us with your point number one.
All right. So I want to start with this point. So the Force multiplies every battlefield. So James wants this debate to be about civilizations. Okay. So I'm going to make it about the one advantage no civilization can manufacture: the Force. Back to the Force. It doesn't simply create powerful individuals. It multiplies the effectiveness of entire armies. During the Clone Wars, Jedi generals like Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Mace Windu routinely turn impossible battles into victories through precognition, enhanced reflexes, telekinesis, and battlefield leadership. The Sith do the opposite. So Emperor Palpatine manipulated an entire galaxy into destroying itself from within without revealing his true identity until it was too late. The Force also creates warriors like anything Star Trek Fields. Luke Skywalker destroys the first Death Star by trusting the Force. Darth Vader literally tears ships apart in Marvel Comics. Yoda casually lifts a whole X-Wing from a swamp. Starkiller drags a crashing Star Destroyer from the sky in The Force Unleashed. These are isolated feats, friends, fans, people. They're examples of a power that continually changes the outcome of wars. Star Trek has incredible technology, but Star Wars has people who become strategic weapons. Every fleet becomes stronger the moment a Force user steps aboard. That's my point number one, James.
All right. So I like how you're doing this. You're, instead of just saying, hey, Star Wars has a Force, you're saying the Force users are, for lack of a better term, Force multipliers.
There you go.
Right. So
Correct.
if they're used the right way, they help determine outcomes of wars. They can be used to create a ton of leverage for whatever side they're fighting on. I would agree with that, except for one problem. I think you're half right.
Oh,
I think you're half right. So, for example, when the Jedi are with, in the Clone Wars, and the Jedi come in and the clones are like needing help, the Jedi come in to kind of like magnify their effectiveness as an army in fighting, that's an immediate thing, right? They've got it. When the Sith do it, because the Sith are all about the subterfuge, right? They're all about like, okay, let's work underneath the societal process and kind of get things going in a way where no one understands they're actually working for us while they're fighting for us until we arise and make ourselves known. That takes time. That took Emperor Palpatine 3 movies, 3 of the prequels to actually get to that point where his Sith abilities really came to fruition and got him the benefit he wanted on a massive scale. So I think you're 50% right. But I think it's not the Sith. I think it's the Jedi that'll be the big advantage there, but not the Sith. Just putting that out there. Not as big of an advantage as you think.
Opinion.
That is my opinion.
I'm seeing what you're saying there.
Again, I'm just saying. I dressed up like Luke Skywalker for Halloween. My mom dressed me up. I'll never forget. And it was in Canada. And I'll never forget these horrible people who said, "You look nothing like Luke Skywalker." And then all of a sudden, years later, the prequels come out and they have a ton of new like Jedi and everything. And I did look like some new Jedi who were named unnamed, whatever.
Did you find those guys? Because you need to have a conversation on the MMA mat.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Thank you, Judge Tadeo. They're all dead now, by the way. Anyway, so yeah, exactly.
Dark pretty quick.
That happens. We don't know how. We don't ask questions.
I paid them all a visit. We had a conversation, and you know what? I said I do look like Luke Skywalker. I was saying that while I was crying severely, and I think I was hitting something with a hammer. I don't know. I went blind for a second. Okay. Let me get to my point number one. My point number one for Star Trek, I'm just going to go with the adaptation is really how, the Star Wars has the Force, but adaptation is Starfleet's greatest superpower. Let me explain why. So, Eric, you're doing a great job. You keep talking about individual heroes and Force users and what have you. And Star Trek's greatest hero really is its ability to adapt to the situation it's facing very quickly. Literally no franchise solves impossible problems faster than Star Trek. Every major Star Trek series follows the same pattern. An enemy appears that cannot be defeated conventionally. Starfleet studies it insanely fast because it's, do or die at the moment. They learn, they adapt, and then they win. The Borg adapted to Starfleet. Starfleet adapted right back. The Dominion introduced new military tactics. Starfleet built new alliances. Species 8472 was immune to Borg assimilation. Voyager engineered a biological freaking weapon the Borg themselves couldn't develop. Throughout the Star Trek franchise, engineers engineers constantly rewrite the rules and come up with solutions. I talked about this before. They modulated the deflector shield frequencies. Somehow that solves everything. They reverse tachyon pulses. I didn't even know tachyons had a pulse. Evidently they do. They reconfigure deflector dishes all the time. They alter warp geometry. How do you do that? Warp is just a measurement of speed. How do you warp the geometry of a measurement of speed? These aren't plot devices. They're the defining characteristics of Star Trek. Who needs the Force when all you have to do is come up with new ways to outthink the problem? The Federation doesn't just survive against stronger enemies. They evolve faster than they do against an opponent that keeps changing. Eventually, even the Force runs into a civilization that refuses to stop learning, and that's fine. They'll get get it the win. But that's not the case with Star Trek, because Star Trek never stops learning and never stops adapting. That's my point number one.
So I like it. They're evolving, right? Star Trek, they evolve, right? And that is something that I totally agree with. It's always been amazing to see them do it. So the adaptation, though, is the counterpunch. So where they get hit first, and then they hope they survive, and then they come back to ultimately win. That's how I feel Star Wars works versus Star Trek.
Wait, so you're saying Star Wars is kind of like this is a boxing match? Star Trek doesn't really get started until it gets hit really hard first a bunch of times.
Yes.
And then it has to go into round 2.
Correct.
Ooh, that's interesting. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. I got to put things into fighting kind of
help
methodology for me to process what you're saying.
And there's an obvious reason for that. This guy is a killing machine.
Interesting. Thank you.
Gentle giant.
Thank you. It's good to be
A
recognized.
little compliment outside
That's
of
fair.
our battle.
You're a good guy. Okay. That is actually kind of mind-boggling now that you put that out there, because that does happen a lot. But they do adapt. And remember, every Rocky boxing story, he's getting crushed and he adapts and comes back. So I don't know if that works for you, against you. But again, it doesn't matter. Judge Tadeo, you've heard one point from both Eric and myself. Where's your head at so far?
I mean, I like, this is a great match because you have different styles, and stylistically, that's why we watch fights. And I'm no Don King. I mean, we might have similar hair. I know you're related to Star Trek's greatest ever, Captain Kirk. But I don't think I'm related. I'm definitely not related to Don King. But nonetheless, my point in saying this is that I like this fight. This is the level, caliber of match you put together. You have force versus adaptation. And I need to see who swings first and who swings last. Then I render decisions.
He's making us wait.
All right, here we go. All right. I love where the judge goes with this. Eric, here's your point number 2.
All right, here we go. Point number 2. So look, Star Wars possesses the greatest collection of super weapons ever assembled. So James would tell you Star Trek has better technology, but when civilizations go to total war, nothing compares to Star Wars. The Death Star destroyed Alderaan with a single blast. The second Death Star could annihilate capital ships in seconds. Legends expands even farther. The Suncrusher survives supernovas while triggering them. The Galaxy Gun launches hyperspace-capable planet-killing missiles across the galaxy. Centerpoint Station, it can move planets and devastate fleets across interstellar distances. The world devastators consume entire planets to manufacture endless war machines. And then let's not forget that the Starforge builds fleets almost without limit by feeding on stellar energy and a dark side. Even in canon, the Final Order's Zeissman-class Star Destroyers each carry a super laser capable of destroying a planet. No science fiction franchise has accumulated this many civilization-ending weapons. Star Trek has remarkable engineering. Star Wars has repeatedly built machines capable of deciding the fate of galaxies. So that's my point number 2, James.
All right, I'm going to have to say this one more time. How dare you? How dare you bring up the sequels? That is such a travesty to all things. I really hope Star Wars just writes them out of continuity and canon. That is horrible. Okay, you also brought up a lot of stuff from Legends. And remember, I said Legends is not part of canon. However, these are all things that, I don't know, maybe they are being made. I don't know. Just because it's not said doesn't mean it's not there. I think, could the Empire build this kind of stuff? Sure. I do think so. But you also have to remember one thing. These are all very resource intensive type of building structures and manufacturing plants and what have you, you can obviously get, like, even the Death Star couldn't shoot rapid fire blasts, right? It had to power up, destroy a planet, and then it took time to repower up again. And what happened? One missile from Luke Skywalker destroyed it because it went to the right spot, right? So I think the problem with Star Wars, it has all these great weapons that can fire once and then take forever to reload. And that's the problem, right? Like, if you even go back to like English style muskets, when the English were fighting,
musket.
Yeah, the whole thing. Like, they would fire once, and then they'd have to duck behind another line who was firing and hopefully not get shot while they're reloading their musket. I think Star Wars has some big guns, but they definitely have a musket-like reload mechanism for them. And again, remember, what does Star Trek do? They get hit once and then they adapt. Right? So this kind of plays into the whole Star Trek thing. All right, let me get into my point number 2. For my point number 2, I was talking about how Star Trek controls space, time, and reality through science. So, Eric, you're focusing on these bigger guns. Good call. Star Trek changes the battlefield itself. And throughout the entire Star Trek franchise, we've seen this. Time travel becomes routine, right? We've seen it in the Search for Spock, then the Star Trek movie after. They go back in time, and the Star Trek crew goes to the 80s in San Francisco, finds a whale, brings it back, lets the whale communicate with its huge interstellar destructive force, and on the destructive force is like, okay, cool, I heard a whale, I guess I'm out, right? I don't know how that worked. It just was a thing. Temporal incursions are erased. Alternate timelines restored. Subspace, where Jared from Subway likes to hang out, completely manipulated. Stars reignited. Black holes weaponized. The Genesis device that can terraform worlds in hours. The Guardian Forever provides access across time. Red matter collapses stars into singularities. The Department of Temporal Investigations exists because freaking time travel is so common in the Star Trek universe. The future version of Captain Janeway rewrites history to cripple the Borg. The Enterprise repeatedly escapes impossible situations by understanding the laws of physics better than its enemies. That is crazy how that all works. Star Trek doesn't just build stronger ships that can do bigger, more destructive things like what happens in Star Wars. Star Trek rewrites reality using science. There's a level of flexibility almost no fictional universe can consistently match. And that's Star Trek, going from, hey, we have to manipulate time to help us solve this problem or rewrite physics. When you can do that, it doesn't matter how big of a gun you can shoot at me. If I can rewrite time, that bullet never lands in the first place. All that's my point number 2.
My goodness, James. All right. Another great point, repping Star Trek. You even brought the well up there. I'm actually going to bring up the alternate method of time manipulation that a lot of people don't know about in Star Wars.
Uh-oh. I do know about it. Okay. Really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Damn it. Okay. Because now remember I told you I got about 15 points and I had to figure it out?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to quickly try to rewrite my last point to kind of deal with this. All right. Interesting stuff from Eric. But again, none of that matters because we are at the turning point. Coach Tadeo, you've heard 2 points from both Eric and myself. Who do you think is ahead and what does the other side have to do to get the victory?
I mean, it's interesting because while was it Grogu? What was our buddy? What is it?
The little Yoda guy? Grogu.
Well, Grogu, I mean, he is resilient, and while he flopped in the box office, in real battle, that young man, who's old young man, the oxymoron, isn't gonna. That little rascal isn't easy to defeat, and that mindset really is something that the Force has delivered to about 20,000, 25,000 folks. So I don't know how you defeat a little fella like that with that level of mind power. I just don't know how any universe.
Wow, so you're saying you're going back to like the Force is now the way it leverages it's a strike enhancer, so to speak.
Yes, it is something to be dealt with and addressed.
That's what I'm talking about.
All right,
this man knows his stuff.
All right, well, let's see what's about to happen, Eric. It's now or never. Here's your point number 3.
Yeah, so I'm gonna bring it home. This is my final point. Like I said, I'm grateful that this was able to take place. And it's going to be a little long-winded one, but I feel that I'm able to get out all of my information that I wanted to, some of what I wanted to present last time and to bring it home. All right, so The cosmic side of the Force rivals anything in Star Trek. Okay, so James is going to bring up the Q Continuum, right?
Sorry, go ahead.
So fair enough. Okay. But if we're talking about the absolute highest levels of each universe, then Star Wars has to bring its own cosmic heavy hitters to the table. Okay, so beyond the Jedi, beyond the Sith, beyond Emperor Palpatine, and even Luke Skywalker, Star Wars introduces beings that exist at the very heart of the Force itself. So let's start with the ones from Star Wars, the Clone Wars. Okay, so they're ancient Force entities who exist on Mortis, right? A mysterious realm where the Force is manifested physically. The ones are not simply powerful Force users, they embody the Force itself. So the Father exists to maintain balance between the light and the dark. He's powerful enough to restrain both of his children simultaneously. Beings who individually eclipse virtually every Jedi and Sith in history, his role is to preserve the equilibrium, and in the battle of universes, he becomes the ultimate battlefield moderator, okay? So capable of preventing either side from tipping reality too far in one direction. So then there's the Son, the physical embodiment of the dark side. He corrupts minds, dominates powerful Force users, transforms into monstrous forms, and commands devastating destructive power. On Mortis, he overwhelms Obi-Wan Kenobi and Ahsoka Tano, corrupts Anakin Skywalker himself, and demonstrates abilities far beyond conventional Force techniques. Against Star Trek, the Son isn't just another combatant. He's a living force of chaos, capable of destabilizing entire alliances through corruption and fear. Opposing him is the daughter, the embodiment of the light side of the Force. She possesses extraordinary healing abilities, can transfer life energy, purify corruption, and protect others from overwhelming darkness. Her sacrifice restores Ashoka's life, demonstrating that her connection to the Force extends beyond simple healing into the manipulation of life itself. In this battle, she provides a direct counterbalance to cosmic threats, reinforcing allies and restoring those who would otherwise fall. And then we have perhaps the single most mysterious location in all of Star Wars, the world between wars, introduced in Star Wars Rebels. This isn't merely another dimension. It's a nexus connecting countless moments across time and space through the Force. Ezra Bridger enters it and reaches into another point in history to rescue Ahsoka Tano from certain death during her duel with Darth Vader. The world between worlds demonstrates that the Force itself contains pathways connecting different points in time, allowing events to be observed and under extraordinary circumstances even influenced. So that gives Star Wars something very few fictional universes possess: a metaphysical framework where time, destiny, and casualty intersect. So James, you might argue that the Q Continuum operates on a larger scale. That's a legitimate argument, okay? Just trying to get ahead. You see, just like Star Wars does, right? But Star Wars isn't trying to win by copying the Q. It's presenting a different kind of cosmic power. The Mortis gods don't derive their authority from advanced technology or omnipotence. They are the living manifestations of balance, light, and darkness. The world between worlds is a Force's own bridge across time. Together, they represent the deepest layer of Star Wars mythology, the level where the Force itself shapes existence. James, that is my point number 3.
You really went there, huh? You really went there.
I had to air it out.
That's like 3 points in one. Okay.
Here we are.
Interesting. Well done. I will say the world between worlds is where I think, I'm just going to put it out there, Ahsoka Tano is going to go back there, and that's where something's going to happen where she says, okay, I don't want what's going to happen in the sequels to happen, therefore I won't do this thing, which causes all of it to be erased. I'm telling you, that's the key. I'm saying it, who would win fan, the Legion of Audience, that's how I predict the sequels get erased. Okay. So I'm liking you bring that all up. Okay. The thing I'm going to say to everything you brought up is that you could say they're really significant. You can say things happen, but the reality is it's like they all control a chunk of Star Wars. They can't just, snap a finger and all of a sudden everything's rewritten. They all kind of are part of something together. They all form like a puzzle piece, all very powerful, but it's not like any one of them can change things. And that's the difference here. So let me get to my point number 3.
Right.
For my point number 3, let's talk about the Q Continuum. And that Q Continuum operates on a level beyond conventional conflict, which is really cool. You know, Eric, you spent this debate talking about fleets, super weapons, Jedi, Sith, empires. The problem is that Star Trek contains these cool beings where things are almost, all those things are almost kind of like meaningless. And the Q Continuum exists outside the normal limits of space, time, matter, and causality. So it says in Star Trek, right? So members such as Q casually transport starships across the galaxy, freeze time, resurrect the dead, create life, erase objects from existence, alter physical laws, and move between alternate realities with little more than a thought. In Star Trek The Next Generation, Q hurls the Enterprise D over 7,000 light years to confront the Borg for the first time. And in All Good Things, Q allows Jean Lucy Pissard, Jean-Luc Picard, of course, to experience 3 points in time simultaneously while the fate of humanity hangs in the balance. In Star Trek Voyager, civil war within the Q Continuum produces supernova-like consequences across the galaxy that even disputes among Q have cosmic repercussions. And perhaps even more importantly, or most importantly, the Q rarely rely on brute force. They manipulate probability, reality, history, existence itself. Now, to be fair, Star Wars contains extraordinarily powerful beings. You mentioned the Morris gods, the ones, the Father, the Son, the Daughter, the world between worlds. By the way, I didn't know if you were going to bring those up in a Star Wars versus Star Trek battle, but anyone who's worth their salt, I like that expression, by the way, would have done it, and I'm glad you did. You are an awesome opponent. That is awesome. The problem is, all those entities are localized within the mythology of the Force. The Q Continuum, however, operates really on this kind of crazy, broader, I don't know what you want to call it, conceptual level, and they treat the physical universe itself as something to edit rather than obey, right? And when one side is arguing about who has a stronger fleet and the other side can simply rewrite the game board, you're no longer debating military power. You're kind of debating the nature of reality itself. And that's what Q brings to the table. As great as Star Wars is, they don't have a Q who can rewrite the nature of reality itself. That's my point number 3.
So my thing, James, with the rebuttal is for you, just to bring this home, because, I mean, what a battle. This is unreal. So glad that I get to be a part of it and to hear your points, all we have done here. So what I want to say is, when is the last time you saw Q ever get involved with any of the battles that Star Trek is doing? And who is to say that Q would even they might even be okay if Star Wars did win. So that's the Q part, okay, which you were very detailed about. So that's my main point, is like, when do you ever see Q get involved? That aside, this is what I gotta do. We're talking combat. You got to talk about your artillery, right? Talk about your destructive capabilities. Star Trek, just to run some numbers here, has about 60,000 combat capable starships, okay? Now, Star Wars, okay, so that's Star Trek, about 60,000, amazing, highly effectively engineered combat capable starships. That's on the Star Trek side. To stick with the numbers, Star Wars, as a conservative number, has somewhere between 3 to 5 million all-out capable ships that can battle where Q, like we always said, most likely wouldn't even be involved. So there's no way to take on an opponent that has that much more of a destructive power than you. That's my opinion. So, I mean, 60,000 combat capable starships versus 3 to 5 million. It's just not an even level playing field. That's just my feeling. And as a Trekkie, I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe all these are decommissioned and a lot of them disappeared, just like sometimes it happens in wars, right? But that's just what I wanted to say for my rebuttal.
I will say this. I think that is an accurate number because the Empire was known for being very comprehensive, and they wanted complete control. And the way you control it is you have better firepower, and you got to have a lot of firepower to kind of cover everything the galaxy has to offer. And then the rebellion, or anyone who doesn't want to go with the Empire, even if it's a fraction, that's still a lot of ships. So together, yeah, I think that's an accurate number.
Now, if it was relative, if it was 60 versus 60, then I think that would be a different outcome, you know? And trust me, Star Trek, even with their 60,000, they can still do a lot of destruction, you know? But yeah, that's just but I had to lean in on it.
Interesting. All right. So these are good points. But again, none of this really matters because Judge Tadeo, you have promised us that you will come to a decision in today's episode of Who Would Win. So take us through your process. Tell us a story, if you will, and give us a definitive winner in this battle between Star Wars and Star Trek.
All right. Well, this is a 2-part answer because it's a 2-part episode. So let me just get started. Captain Kirk, the ultimate captain, and also Rico Suave before there was a Rico Suave. I mean, he had created Suave. Yes. When he arrives and meets with the Star Wars universe, he sees Princess Leia. And he woos her with this. Can I hear that voice again? How would he speak to Princess Leia?
I really like how you dress up as a slave to Jabba the Hutt. Sorry.
And her knees wobble. Listen to hear it well. Before anybody can reach for their lightsaber, she acquiesces and says, whatever you want, it's yours. Okay, but in the real world, all right, back to that was just my fantasy. Okay.
But you know what?
That was sorry.
But Captain Kirk's kind of like the Han Solo of Star Trek.
He's on another stratosphere.
Right.
He created Han Solo because remember the timeline.
Yes, that's
He's
true.
Before him,
That's
so
true.
right. All right, let's keep our dates.
Han Solo took
but
notes.
what truly happens, and unfortunately, as a Trekkie, I have to still render my decision impartial. It just comes down to numbers, and as advanced as Star Trek's technology is, and I think it is superior, we just don't have the numbers to justify a defeat in battle. You're talking about the Star Wars Empire has 5 million battleships. Let's render half of them incapable of war. 2.5 million. And Star Trek at its best has 60,000 in its fleet. And I just have to say that no matter how you pose it, no matter how you see it, no matter how it unfolds, even with time travel, and despite the fact, or even with Q, it'd be difficult. Without Q, it's impossible. And then this episode of Who Would Win, in the second part, because of the sheer numbers of battle cruisers that are ready, and as kings of war in the sky, Star Wars defeats Star Trek in this epic and universal battle, and they reign supreme.
You know what? I'm breathing. I'm not liking this answer whatsoever, but I'm happy Star Wars won because I like that franchise a little bit more. I'm not happy that Star Trek lost, but I got to tell you, again, I'm so impressed with Eric Holmes' research on this, and to come up with that fact and figure of how many spaceships or starships, in battle. There's just something about, wave after wave after wave coming at you, and you can only adapt so much. And it's not like they're going to hit and then give you time to breathe. That's not what the Empire does. They hit and they keep coming and they keep coming and they don't stop. Yeah. When does Darth Vader during a fight ever say, "Hey, you look a little tired. Let me give you a little break. Can I bring you a beverage?
Let's stop this.
Yeah, can I bring you a snack or something?" Yeah, he's like, no. So I actually did not know Star Wars had that level of firepower as a universe, but it kind of makes sense.
Do some digging.
Because if you think about it, if the Klingons had to control the entire galaxy, how many ships would they need?
Yeah.
A lot more.
Right.
All right. Okay. You know what? I'll go with this. I'm going to go with it. I like it. I do think you brought up a great point about Q. Could he change the battle? Sure. But the Q Continuum already doesn't get that involved.
Exactly.
Because they're like saying, we want to see how humanity evolves.
Correct.
Well, then guess what? They're going to see how humanity evolves through Star Wars because they're humans too. So why wouldn't he be like, no, let's just see what happens. If you don't survive, then, oh, well, we'll talk to the winners.
Right.
All right. Okay. My hat is off to you.
Thank you.
Eric Holmes, congratulations. You are the Grand Slam victor of the first ever two-parter of Who Would Win. Tell each of our fan base how you feel.
It took a lot, and Tadeo did. James, you know, were a little aggressive the last episode, but our judge did deliver a decision per threat. But anyhow, I feel, this was an easy one, right? And there's a lot of other angles and like fellow Trekkies here. So I feel I'm grateful for this win after a battle like this. We really battled it out. But, Star Trek is amazing and highly, highly impactful, just destructive as well. So skilled, so much tacticians, like we said, and just on another level, and just the innovation of the time of that show and all of its influence and everything they came up with. So it's a epic, powerhouse to deal with. You know, so here we are. I'll take the win.
You know, it's funny, if you look at it, the size of the battles and everything, it's almost like Star Trek could exist within Star Wars, but Star Wars wouldn't exist within Star Trek. If that makes any sense, right?
Wow.
It's kind of a weird, I know it's a weird statement, right? Star Trek's about hope and all this kind of stuff, and Star Wars is about like, hope we can do it. I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? It's a little bit of a different thing. Yeah. Yeah. Are we really doing this? All right. I love it. And again, this is why I love the Who Would Win show, because we just kind of go there, show respect to both, you know, franchises or both characters, and just kind of go there and just see what happens. I don't know if too many other shows that actually would do a Star Trek versus Star Wars, but here we are. We did it. And by the way, I think we'll go bigger before we go smaller. That's at the end. By the end of the year, we'll do some smaller battles, but I got some ideas for some bigger ones. Yeah. All right. Great job, Coach Tadeo. Or Judge Tadeo. Great job. Absolutely amazing. Eric, tell Legion of Audience, our fan base, where they can find you online.
Yes, at the THE Eric with the C Holmes, HOLMES. Let's connect and live long and prosper, my friends.
I love it. All right. Judge Tadeo, this was not easy, but you fulfilled your promise. You were good. Stay good to your word. You gave us a winner. Thank you so much. Please come back for another episode. Until then, tell Legion of Audience, our fan base, where they can find you online.
You can find me online at Cuerpazo and in person in the BH. That's Beverly Hills. That truly is the best place in the universe.
Oh my gosh, it's the epitome of Star Wars and Star Trek put together. It's where Captain Kirk,
Han
and Princess
Solo
Leia,
and Princess Leia court. Well, she's courting me in this.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, we all have our things. We all have our things. All right. Very cool. You can find me on X, aka Twitter and Facebook by typing in at James Gavsie. You can find me on X, aka Twitter and Facebook by typing in at James Gavsie. Find me on Instagram at James Gavsie MMA. You can also find us on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Who Would Win Show. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube by going to at Who Would Win Show. Yes, that's right. Our podcast is only on YouTube. On behalf of myself, Eric Holmes, today on the rest of the amazing Who Would Win production team, thank you once again for checking out another episode of Who Would Win. We'll see you next time.